What's going on, everybody? We are live, and I am here joined for another episode of Random Rambling by my buddy David from Interpreting the Stars. What's going on, man? Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, no problem, dude. I knew we had to do this soon enough. So, for anybody who's watching this for the first time, Random Rambling is just going to be essentially what the title is. We're just going to talk, get to know each other a little bit better, give it kind of an opportunity for you guys to get to know us a little bit better, and just kind of talk about YouTubing, movies, various things. So, I guess I should give some context really quickly. David and I met quite some time ago at this point. We've been pretty big supporters of each other's channels. We've appeared on each other's channels, and we've become friends outside of YouTube, and we talk pretty much almost every day, at least a couple texts back and forth a day about various things. So I knew that this had to happen at some point soon enough. And yeah, man, you're one person that I was actually really interested to have a discussion with outside of texting, because there's only so much you can do there, right? But with you, with everybody else I've had on so far, they've all been primarily YouTube. You are somebody who interests me a lot because you put a lot of work into your craft, quite a bit of it. And I've told you before, it's super impressive to me, genuinely. And you have this very long history of posting content on various streaming sites. You have like movies and short films that were on Amazon. I think they were. I don't know if they're still there anymore. I think you told me they may have been taken down. But you've had a very wide array of things that you've done. From written reviews to everything. So instead of asking you what I've asked everybody else at the beginning, which is what got you into YouTube, what got you into reviewing films and being creative and doing the various things that you've done over the course of the last, 15 years, or if not more?
So I guess that would be a long story. I first started reviewing movies, I think 2007. I messed around with movies, making my own, and just been interested in it as a general rule since pretty much birth. But I started reviewing movies in 2007 when I lived in Indianapolis, and I didn't want to do it on YouTube, initially speaking, because I figured everybody else was doing YouTube, and I wanted to do something else. I wanted to find a different streaming platform to do it on. And so there was this one place called VO. I called it the VO Review. And pretty much instantaneously, the people out in VO who are stationed in California sent out a message to me saying they wanted to feature me. They liked what I did. I wasn't even very good at what I was doing at that point in stage. All I was really talking about was, I like this movie. I didn't like this movie. I liked it. I didn't like it. I didn't say anything other than that, but it was what it was. But it got the word out to them that they were great. They are no longer in operation for the most part. They exist, but they're not anything. Then I went into a different station. Another one called Nudia.tv. I don't think that exists anymore. But I was also featured on that. And then I went to writing reviews. And I wrote reviews for a very long time on my website, Dave Examines Movies. That was before Interpreting the Stars. I still write for that, but for the most part, I moved on to YouTube because I've always liked doing videos, whether it be reviewing movies or making movies or videos or editing videos or doing whatever. I just like whatever it is. So my interest in movies has evolved from, just liking it in general to wanting to pick apart what makes a movie and what makes it a film and an experience. And that's why I created my interpreting part of it, where I started breaking down things like my people category, which goes over acting, characters, casting, importance, and chemistry of the people. The writing category, which goes over the dialogue, the balance or pacing of the film, the story depth, originality, and how interesting this concept is. The BTS category, behind the scenes, which goes over the visual, cinematography, editing, advertisement, music, sound, and then the narrative, which goes over the introduction, inciting incident, obstacles, climax, and falling action. And then I split apart. That would be the technical part of it, and then it goes straight into the bias, which is all the stuff that I personally feel about a movie that might not be shared by everybody else, which is, rewatchability, how much of a good time in general you have while watching, your impulse to buy it or own it if you don't want to, buy it at full price, your impulse to talk about or recommend it to other people who haven't seen it, and how engaging it is, which basically means if you look away, do you feel like you'll miss something in the movie? And then I have 5 specialty questions that I usually ask about any kind of movie, something like genre, actor specific, um, and why interpreting stars is a channel name. That's why, because I'm interpreting the different parts of the movie or
Yeah.
whatever, the film, yeah.
That's crazy, man. Yeah, yeah. So you've had a long history with it. Let me, before we continue, before I respond to everything you just said, just so you know, your microphone on your headphones are just rubbing up against the zipper there on your jacket just a little bit. Yeah. So I mean, I don't know if you want to like undress or there you go, do that.
Oh, yeah. That's always what I want to do.
Yeah. There's YouTube OnlyFans live stream. Um, But yeah, hold on. So before he comes back, thank you to everybody who's here. We're going to continue talking. What is going on? Cinematic tendency. How is it going? There you go. There's your thing right there. Sorry to make you have to do that real quick, man. Uh,
Oh, no.
yeah, YouTube OnlyFans account right now. So we got cinematic tendency in here. What's going on? But all right, so cool, yeah, man, that's crazy, man. So you had this long history, you're trying to hop onto these different services, and I remember that part about the story. You told me that you're trying to be on these different platforms, and then they just ended up crumbling. So when you could have possibly been one of the early birds to reviewing films on YouTube, you were actually on these various sites, and then by the time you came onto YouTube, it was already this overly saturated market. I have to say, man, for anybody who is watching this, whether you're watching it live or you're watching it after the fact, please go check out Interpreting the Stars. The link is down below in the description box. This dude puts so much work into his videos. I don't know how you do it. And I don't know if you were still in the live stream the other night when I was talking to Trav, but like at a certain point, we started talking about you again. And we were talking about, I was telling him about the way that you like have shown me like your scripts. So for anybody who doesn't know, like Interpreting the Stars like writes scripts for his reviews. And one thing that impresses me so much when you do that is your ability to do that without feeling like you're reading off of something. I never once watch any of your reviews feeling like you are reading a teleprompter, which I'm assuming you have something of some sort of setup like that you're doing. I don't ever feel like you're reading it. It feels very much like you were just saying those words. Do you rehearse those scripts beforehand, or do you just kind of have a general idea of the inflection that you want to have when you're saying certain things?
I would say it's 50-50 as far as rehearsing.
Gotcha.
It's not like a full out rehearsement. It's like I look at what I've written and I just kind of go through a quick read through, making sure that I didn't have a typo that would screw me up when I'm reading, or if I'm gonna jumble upon anything. I just want to make sure that it's written the way that I want it to be written, and then I go for it. I mean, the whole reason why I did that is because I'm not a great speaker. I can record a review and it'll take like half hour if I don't script it out, and because my mind goes about a million miles an hour, and I have to slow it down sometimes to know exactly what I want to say, the way that I want to say it. So, kind of like right now.
Yeah, I get what you mean. So yeah, yeah. So but I mean, hey man, it works, right? And it blows my mind because you post a video every single day. Now you have told me a little bit on the side that that's going to be slowing down a little bit, but I can only imagine that your content will continue to come out as time goes on. I think that the
Mm-hmm.
daily thing does get a little exhausting because I've had weeks maybe where I did daily or every other day, or maybe I did 3 days in a row and then I skipped the day and I did the next day, and even that on its in and of itself can be exhausting. So like, do you ever feel any sense of fatigue with the level of videos that you do? And is that part of the reason why you see yourself kind of slowing down a little bit moving forward?
Constant fatigue. Yes. um, I'm a heavily scheduled person. I like to make sure that I'm always doing something. I like to see like a month out in advance what I'm doing. And I've gotten so invested in this. I have this like Excel spreadsheet where it has every movie that I want to review each day, what time, what day I'm going to watch this movie, when I'm going to schedule it out. And it's constant. I keep doing it, and when I first started doing that, that was fun. But now it's been like, well, now it's just part of the monotony, and I'm seeing a bunch of movies I don't really care to see, and it's like, I want to just kind of stick to the stuff that I want to see instead of watch a bunch of stuff I've never heard of and whatever.
Yeah, I know how that is, man. Like I will go typically like when I do the new stuff, right? Like I'm pretty terrible about keeping up with the new streaming service stuff. But the only time that I ever like feel like I'm really watching things that I don't really want to watch at all is typically maybe not even really even before the pandemic when I was going to the theaters because I would just pick a movie that I didn't really like. I didn't have to have like this abundance of care to see it, but I'd see it, and sometimes there was gems, and sometimes there were just generic films. And nowadays, I don't know if anybody who's been watching my channel knows that it's been everywhere from I've done a lot of 80s horror recently, and I've just found myself in a place of like I'm just gonna do whatever I want. That's part of why I've had so many people like you and like Blacktastic, who's here in the comments. What's going on, Blacktastic, and various others? Check out these Disney Channel original movies from my childhood because I'm at this point where I just want to review everything and anything that I can possibly think that would be of interest for me to revisit, whether it's for a nostalgic purpose, whether it's for just like a comic book movie or anything like that. So I know what you mean, man. I think we're at this point, right, where there was a period of time where there was only so many movies that came out, and you almost felt like you can keep up and you can go back and rewatch old things. Now we're in a time where it's impossible to keep up. It's impossible to ever say like to most people like, oh, I've seen that or I've seen that because there's just such a wide array of streaming services and movies and TV shows and YouTube channels and all these things that it is impossible to keep up with. So I do commend you the way that you've gone about posting your daily content because I can understand how that much would be a struggle. Not to mention another thing I have to commend you for is your ability to keep your reviews within a very constrained amount of time. One of my biggest issues is like because I don't prep in advance outside of like a sheet of notes on like things I want to touch on, and even then sometimes I forget things I want to touch on. I find myself in a place where I am just consistently like, all right, I'm going to shoot this out in 6-7 minutes. And then I look up at the time and I'm like, oh, damn, I've been filming for 15 minutes. And then when I go to edit it, I'm like, well, I like what I'm saying in this 15 minutes. So then I edit it down to like 13 minutes, 12 minutes. It just doesn't, it ends up kind of like, I don't know, I end up just being backed up. And I see here somebody else who's good at that is in the comments. We have Tyler right here who posts content pretty consistently too, and I'm always impressed by him as well, his ability to kind of keep these reviews at a pretty good length, you know what I mean, whereas I like struggle sometimes to keep my reviews under 10 minutes. So is that something that you look at when you go into making a video? Like, are you trying to keep it under 10 minutes, try to keep it quick and sweet?
Well, when I end up writing my reviews, they end up being about 1,000 to 1,200 words per review, and it just works out that way. I say what I need to say about it in my review, all the stuff that comes to mind. I don't push it past that, and it just works out the way that I speak and how fast I speak just ends up being 5, 6, 7 minutes at most. Unless it's something that I have a lot of things to talk about, or if I make a review that I want to actually break down everything that I review as far as actually interpreting those categories. Because those videos will be like 13 to 14 minutes, depending. So I don't exactly try to be short. It just turns out that way because I planned out in advance, I guess.
Yeah, no, I think you do an amazing job at it, bro. And there's a consistency to it too. That's one thing that I enjoy about your channel. Like whenever, and I'm sure that that's part of why, like for me, whenever nowadays, I know I've talked to you about being like having this YouTube fatigue or discouragement and this and that, and that was within the last like month and some change. But I've recently just within the last couple of weeks just got into this mindset of just like really just not caring. Like I'm really just doing this for fun now. And what I also recognize is that I'm posting content frequently enough, especially when I do my collab videos where there's periods of time where it's nothing but collabs like for weeks, and those videos are 15 to 20 minutes a pop. So I recognize that I'm asking people to dedicate 15 to 20 minutes of their time that I don't even have to catch up on YouTube every other day or every day. So it's a lot, you know. So for me, it's like when I see somebody like you who's able to keep it short and sweet. When I have time to watch something on YouTube and I'm like, oh, look, I'm going through my watch later. Here's a review from David. I can do it really quick while I'm like, I don't know, getting dressed, putting my shoes on or something like that. And I don't feel like I'm like sitting here like missing part of the video because I'm like, I can watch it really quickly and dip out. So I have to commend you for that. Let's look at some of these comments we have here. We have Cinematic Tendency saying that he's also not a great speaker, but that YouTube has helped him. And I should also mention, just because he's there on the screen, Cinematic Tendency and I will be having a collab on my channel very soon for Eddie's $1 Million Cook-Off. It's a Disney Channel original movie that I had him check out about a guy who is really big in his baseball team and finds out that he is a fan of home ec and gets invited to be part of this cook-off. And yeah, it's a pretty cheesy movie, but it's a good movie. It's a little heavy-handed on like the idea of like a guy who's into sports wanting to go do wanted to go be a cook, but everybody kind of calling him a wuss. Everybody kind of calling him like a girl for doing that. So yeah, it was nice to be able to sit somebody else through that. We got Blacktastic in here saying that he's chilling. That he's heading out to LA tomorrow to spend a whole week out there shooting for his second season of Compton is My City. Dude, you got to give Blacktastic love for the amount of content he's putting out, these documentaries, these short films. I mean, top-notch stuff. And Blacktastic is actually going to be the next collab that I have coming out on my channel. I'm a little behind, so I have a few collabs coming out I'm going to talk about here in this video, but Blacktastic and I are doing An American Werewolf in London. I will be getting that up within the next couple of days, as well as David and I right here, Interpreting the Stars. We will be doing Ex Machina, which I'm definitely excited to do. Donald Gleason and Oscar Isaac and Alicia Vikander. Really good movie. Really thoroughly enjoy that one. And then I'm going to have which one? Who?
I'm like, is that how you say it? Because in my part of the review, I said Ex Machina. It's Ex Mech. Whatever.
Yeah, Ex Machina.
Machina.
Yeah. It's a weird name. Yeah. But we can make reference in that in the video if you want. Yeah, so we got that going on, and then what else am I doing? Oh, and then with the Z Reviews, which is a new channel that I just got to know. It's a smaller channel. I had him join me for Gravity, starring Sandra Bullock and George Clooney, which I actually just saw for the first time the other day and thoroughly enjoyed. If you guys haven't checked that out, I would say check it out. Let's look at some more comments here. Prodigious says, oh, I'm Blacktastic, sweet to him. And then it says, yeah, he agrees that it's hard to keep up with everything. It really, really is. It's just way too much material to watch these days of all kinds. I'm also a really big gamer, and I just feel at this point, with games more so than movies, I'm at a place where I don't feel that urge to like, oh, the new game's out, I got to drop $60 every time, because it's impossible. There's just way too much to watch, way too much to play, way too much. It's really crazy. Do you ever feel like there's things that you're missing out on because you're trying to catch up with these movies on your list that you prefer to watch something else?
Sometimes yes, especially when I was doing Interpreting the Scares, because I was doing a bunch of stuff from the past, and I was missing all the newer things that were coming out that people were talking about, and I was missing out on. And also because I don't go to the theater, I am always missing out on other things as well. So, I mean, it is what it is. I got plenty of stuff to watch anyway. So,
yeah, that's kind of the thing, right? It's like, even when you feel like you're missing out on one portion of things, it's just there's so much. Like, you're way more on top of things when it comes to the new streaming movies, and you would think that would be easy for all of us, right? And it would be easy for me too, but I just find myself when I'm home, I'm like playing something, or I'm watching something ancient, or I'm making my girlfriend watch something with me, these random movies from back in the day. Or like lately I haven't really been watching a lot of movies in the last like week and a half, because I've been binging One Piece, my favorite anime, because I always let that kind of build up on some episodes, and now I'm catching up on that. And yeah, it's just there's so much. And if you ever want to revisit anything, it's like you feel like you really have to dedicate time to it. Like, I'm about to revisit the series Lost, which I'll be doing a review for when I'm done with it. But I'm going to revisit it because my girlfriend's never seen it. And so we'll do that from time to time, where we'll take breaks from movies, and then maybe I'll do reviews for movies that I just see here and there on my own. But since we're always together and always watching stuff, it's kind of hard sometimes to like catch up on things because we're always watching randomness.
I just started rewatching Lost.
Did you really?
I just started, yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that it was on Hulu, and I was like, yeah, I want to watch this again because
Yeah.
it's a great show, man. That's a show for me that I had a great time watching. Now, you can there's definitely discussion to be had of about that final season and that final episode in particular, but the show itself and the ride it was. I mean, I'm curious for I guess we don't have to get too crazy with spoilers because but it is an older show. How do you feel about the finale of Lost? Where do you sit? Do you like it or do you not like it?
I I've always liked the finale. Actually, I think a lot of people misinterpreted the finale. I thought a lot of people didn't understand what even happened. Um, and I won't talk about too much about what actually happens, but like a lot of people were spinning around these rumors of what they thought it meant, and that wasn't even remotely close to accurate. I don't know if it's because the show didn't do the best job at explaining that, but I got it when I watched it.
Yeah, it's a bit of a jarring ending, and I feel like it's one of those things that some people like. If you're not one to want to revisit or discuss or look into maybe what you may have missed, it's easy for a lot of people to just see something like that and be like, didn't make sense to me. I don't like it. Shut it off, and then they move on, and then that's their opinion of whatever it is for the ongoing future. So yeah, I do thoroughly enjoy that show. I am looking forward to revisiting it, seeing how my girlfriend reacts to it for the first time. That's been the greatest thing about our relationship. We've been together for a little over 6 years now. But when we first met, she had never seen a Star Wars movie. She had never seen a Marvel movie. She hadn't seen a tremendous amount of movies and things like that. So I've spent literally the last like 6 years or so just revisiting things. So most times when I'm watching older movies, it's because I'm showing her stuff that either I haven't seen in a long time or she's never seen. So that's been a lot of fun for me. I see Cinematic here said One Piece is getting close to 1,000 episodes. Yes, man. I am on 926, 926. Oh, dude, it is so good right now. If you're cinematic, if you're watching, man, oh man, it's so good right now. I don't know how One Piece is able to stay so good, so consistently at the end of every single episode. Cliffhanger galore. Love that show so much. I know you've told me like this is something you've never watched before. Are you a fan of anime to any extent?
No.
Gotcha. Is it just something that you haven't really spent a lot of time with, or is it something that you
The
feel like?
honestly, the only real anime I've ever seen in my life was probably Pokemon,
Gotcha.
maybe Digimon or whatever.
Gotcha. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely an acquired taste, right? And like when I was a kid, I watched a lot of Pokemon and Digimon, Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball. Like there was some of the very basic ones that people were watching. And then it wasn't until I got a little bit older that I started diving into it. And I used to watch just whatever was on TV, so I was just watching the American dubs. And then I fell in love with the Japanese like original dubbings of the shows with the subtitles. And man, it's just so dramatic. It could just be so over the top. And for at first, for people, it's very jarring because you have these characters just screaming in Japanese, like and you have to kind of get used to that. You know what I mean? You got to kind of get used to these characters yelling at each other. And it's goofy as all hell, but man, like some of these shows do such a great job. One Piece is one of them. I know you probably won't watch it, but if you ever want to, it's on Hulu. Starts off incredibly slow, very late '90s cheese, kind of like anime, very slow pace story. But man, once it picks up, it is an incredibly long and over the top and silly and goofy and heartfelt and amazing action packed ride. It's really wild. It's a crazy show. For anybody who hasn't seen One Piece, I highly recommend it. I see right here, Prodigious says that he's been revisiting The Office and some Power Ranger stuff that he'll be reviewing soon. I actually just recently revisited all of The Office and Parks and Recs, and I'll be doing a review on those series very soon. It was really good to go back and watch those. I have such a good time watching mockumentary shows. I think we've talked about The Office before. Are you a fan?
Yeah, I own the entire series.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, you are a fan. Do you like Parks and Recs as well? Have you ever seen that one?
I have seen all of Parks and Recs. I don't own it, but I did see it. So
Yeah. Do you enjoy that one?
I do. I wouldn't say I like it as much as The Office, but I like certain things about it. So
Yeah, for sure. I think that with Parks and Rec, the one upside that I would give that show, though I would agree that I think The Office is a better show. I think that Parks and Rec, because of the fact that they didn't lose like a substantial, cast member, like when with Michael Scott leaving, even though he makes that grand
right.
appearance at the end again.
Once he left, the show completely changed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very much so. And I still thoroughly enjoy those last two seasons, but I got like, and it's nice to see him in that last episode, but it's so brief that I feel like Parks and Rec, just because they were able to maintain their cast throughout the entirety of the entire show, I felt like they were able to wrap it up just a little bit better. But I would argue that that final episode of The Office is far more emotional. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So we got some more comments in here. We got Cinematic saying that he loves One Piece and he's still waiting for the return of Dragon Ball Super. I have a lot of friends who love Dragon Ball Super. Haven't seen any of it yet, but I need to soon. I am a fan of the series of Dragon Ball itself. Said you started watching One Piece in 2005. Back then you had no kids. Now you have four. Yeah. So something that I think is super cool is that Cinematic has four kids. And correct me if I'm wrong, man, but one of your kids is named after Jean-Claude Van Damme, right? Because Cinematic is probably the biggest Jean-Claude Van Damme fan I've ever met in my entire life. I mean, almost every day, but that's an exaggeration, but multiple times a week, he will be watching something and posting it on Instagram of watching something with Jean-Claude in it. I know you're really into martial arts, so I'd love to hear in the comments, bro, what got you so into Jean-Claude? We got the Gasper saying, hey. I got Prodigious saying that Parks and Rec was taken off of Netflix. Yeah, I watched it specifically recently because it was going off of Netflix, and I think it's on Peacock now. And then let's see, minus Chris Pratt here and there, but some good points on Parks and Recs. Yeah, I like Chris Pratt on that show. Do you like Chris Pratt on Parks and Recs?
Do I? I like Chris Pratt and everything.
Yeah, he's great, man. I really thoroughly enjoy him as an actor. Sometimes he's a little samey depending on what the movie is, but I've never once been bored watching one of his movies. I've never been. He's always sold me as an actor, so I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the only thing that you can really ask from an actor. And yeah, so Cinematic does say that he named him after Van Damme. And we got Trav Tries in here.
Yo.
What's going on, Trav? So, question to you: what would be ideal for you moving forward now that you're going to be slowing down your content the way it is? What would be something ideal, or maybe a direction that you'd love to take your channel that you haven't been able to do so yet?
A direction. Honestly, I don't know. I don't have. This is one of the things where I have no plans moving forward as far as that, because next year I have a resolution to be more unplugged than I am now, which is right now I'm like plugged in all the time. I got like 7 screens on at the same time, doing something else. So I'm trying to unplug more. With my channel right now, I don't know. I'm playing around with some ideas about how I can keep it alive while, maybe doing a few, newer movie reviews whenever those pop up out of the woodworks. Because I don't know if I'll be going back and doing these movie marathon things that I have been doing anymore. I'm thinking just stick with the newer stuff because I'm gonna watch those regardless at some point. Um, Maybe trailer reactions. I used to do those. I kind of stopped doing them because I wasn't actually doing trailer reactions how other people do it, where they'd have that second screen where the trailers and you're watching their live reaction. I would be talking about my thoughts on the trailer instead.
Gotcha.
So I never actually did a real trailer reaction. So I could do that. I wanted to do some more deconstructing the narrative videos that I used to do as
Yeah.
well. I haven't really played around with that in a long time. Just in other things as well, that like TV reviews, like how you do your TV reviews. I wanted to nail down an idea of how to do a TV review in a way that's different, but still works and still something that people want to watch and still want to see and things of the nature. I have no idea. There's nothing concrete, but just ideas floating around in the cloud in my head.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing with YouTube, right? It's like this. I know that some people are really good about making concrete plans. I've told you 100 times. That's part of why I don't tell anybody that, like, whenever I do collabs with them, like I always tell people, don't rush, because I just make thumbnails, and when I get to it, I get to it. I don't feel like this sense of like urgency to post anything. Sometimes I bite off more than I should chew. Like this very moment in time where I was like, all right, cool. I want to do this live stream with David. I have the collab to do with Blacktastic, Z Reviews, with you yourself, with cinematic tendencies, and then I have 2 collab videos to film for Rashad G's channel, and one for him and one for Jacob Martin, which I'm going to continue my Shrek reviews over there with Jacob Martin, and then I'm like, all right, whoa, let me just calm down. Let me get through this live stream, and then the next few days, I'm just gonna try to shell out all these videos because I'm like, there's just so much. But then I want to take breaks, and then I want to do like random videos that I don't have to put so much, like don't put myself into too much. Like I started working on another supercut video, which is just fun to do. But then it's like sometimes if I start working on it, I'm like, I don't give a crap to do this, and then I'll get back to it later on. Then I'm like, I don't give a crap to do this, but I'll do it eventually. So yeah, man, YouTube is just this crazy thing of like trying to have ideas, and maybe you do certain things, and maybe you just don't give a crap to continue it. Like I started doing some gaming videos not too long ago, but it was a while ago at this point. It's a few months ago, and I was doing these gaming videos for the Star Wars Battlefront 2 campaign. And the Star Wars Battlefront 2 game has been out for years at this point. And I was just deciding to play through the campaign and have my commentary in there. But as I was doing it, I did like 2 episodes of that, and then I kept telling myself I was going to do it again. But then whenever I play games, I'm like, I don't care to film myself right now. Like, I just kind of want to sit here. And going to something you were talking about with like trailer reactions, I did a few near the beginning of my channel as well, but it was similar to what you were saying, like where I just was discussing my thoughts on the trailer, which I found people were not as interested in compared to like, what most people do, which is just reacting to the trailer itself as it's happening in front of them. And those videos for me, I feel like I would just kind of be sitting there with like a plain face, maybe a smirk on my face. I don't know if you're like this because I know I am. I'm like not super reactive when I'm watching trailers or movies.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
if something's like laugh out loud funny or something like that, or like something makes me feel like kind of like, when there's like a nice, like satisfying moment in a movie and you kind of have like a smirk on your face or something like that because of something that happened. That's about it. But like if I'm scared or if I'm sad or this and that, like it would have to make me really sad or something to get me reactive when it's all happening in here. Like I have all these sparks and, all these thoughts and feelings in my head. And sometimes I'll get emotional about certain things, like depending on the like how strong it is in that moment. But it isn't until I get, I don't know. It isn't on. I feel like if I did a reaction, anytime I watch trailers, you know what I mean. Like I just feel like I'm watching, and it isn't until it's over that I'm like have all these things to say. I feel like if I was watching it live and doing reactions, I would be a little false to who I am.
Yeah, I feel like if I was doing it too, I'd be pushing it. I'd be faking, certain expressions because normally, yeah, I'm got pretty much a stone expressionless cold face.
Yeah, no,
yeah, it's all happening up there, like you said, but that's about it.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's this thing where it's all happening in the head. You have these sparks going off, but you just don't have like. It's not that you can't, but you almost feel like you'd be forcing it. You'd just be putting on a show, and it's like I don't really want to do that. So I'm like, I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. I think one thing for me moving forward is I want to try to get better about reviewing some of the newer movies because I'm sure I know for a fact that there is a percentage of my audience that only clicks on videos when they are the newer movies. I haven't gone to the theaters in the last few weeks. I was trying to do that a little bit. I know you think I'm crazy for going out to the theaters right now, which is okay. I get that. That's fine. I understand. But I haven't gone in a few weeks, mainly because there isn't anything that's like freaking calling me. And now, mind you, I did a review for that Empty Man garbage, and what was the one I saw the week before that? I don't know. I've seen a few movies already in theaters that were okay or just like not good at all. And so, like some of the newer ones, there are some I want to see. I want to see like Let Him Go, starring Kevin Costner and Diane Keaton, I believe is who is in this movie. It's about like I think their son dies, and their grandson is now living with like this other side of the family, but they're like holding him hostage, and they kind of kidnapped him. So now the grandparents are coming to kick ass, but they're played by Diane Keaton and Kevin Costner. It looks pretty cool. Not really the greatest movie, or not really something that's like make me like run to the screen to go watch it, but it looks pretty cool. I want to go see that new movie Freaky, the one with Vince Vaughn, where it's like the whole multiple body thing. That seems pretty cool.
Freaky Friday thing.
Yeah, like a Freaky Friday thing. I didn't even think about that. You're right. I see Tyler here said Empty Man. And so funny story, Tyler and I were actually the first people on YouTube to post our reviews for the Empty Man, which I think is amazing for starters because both Tyler and I were able to benefit from that. The views were pretty good. Tyler has way more subscribers and he gets views pretty quickly, so like he was able to skyrocket. But yeah, it was almost a blessing that there was this movie that nobody had really heard about and nobody was talking about, but it was small enough that like we were able to kind of thrive from the videos. I still don't think any of the bigger YouTubers have really done a review for that movie, and it just goes to show like that movie was. Have you heard anything about The Empty Man?
Only what you have said.
Oh my god, dude. So okay, so it's I'm not gonna really get too deep into it because it's a very strange, convoluted film, but the basic premise is like there's this. It's okay, so it kind of
Empty
plays
man. There's an empty man. Yes, I hear
yeah,
that.
the empty man, right? Like there's this, that concept that we've seen before where the creepy Bloody Mary thing or the Candy Man look in front of a mirror, say the name, they appear kind of thing. This one is very confusing, so I'm not even going to try to explain it. But I remember watching the trailer for the first time, and mind you, the trailer and the poster for the movie came out 5 days prior to the release of the film, which usually does not bode well for what the content of the film is all about. But in this movie, instead of it being something, because there's something simple and creepy about that premise of like, okay, I'm going to stand in front of my mirror with the lights off and say this name, and there's creatures going to appear. There's something almost like I shouldn't do this, but it's kind of creepy. I understand because when I was young and people were telling me about the Bloody Mary thing when I was really young, it was a creepy concept to me. This movie plays on that same kind of thing, except for the fact that it is instead of saying what you say in front of a mirror. If you find a glass bottle on a bridge at night and blow into it and think about the empty man, he'll come get you. And I just remember seeing the trailer and I just died of laughter because I thought, what a ridiculous premise around summoning this creature. So what if I find the bottle in the daytime or, I don't know, like in the middle of the day and the sun is still up and it's a plastic bottle and not a glass bottle. Like it just seemed like so strange, the rules around it. I would love to hear your thoughts on that if you ever see
Very
it.
specific. Yeah.
Yeah, incredibly specific.
No, I just saw, speaking of Bloody Mary, they had done that in Paranormal Activity 3, I want to say. And like I'm not the biggest fan of Paranormal Activity 3. I think it's fine, but I think that was actually probably the strongest part of it because that is a creepy concept. It's something that when I was a kid and I heard about it, I didn't want to try it myself because it's something that makes your skin crawl, makes you wonder what if. But it does once you start getting convoluted, something like that, more and more and more rules. It's like who would ever wander into that kind of scenario where you find that out?
Yeah, exactly. That's the part that's so funny about it is like who would wander into a scenario like that? Whereas with something like the Bloody Mary thing, it's simple enough to be creepy where it could be passed on from kid to kid. Like I heard that if you do this, I haven't done it, but my big brother said that if you do this, and then the young kids try it, and then like there's a creepy mythology behind it all.
Less is more.
Yeah, exactly. Less is more, especially when it comes to horror, right? We've seen that. Depends on the franchise, but I find that thing that's part of like what we were. I commented not too long ago on your first review for Paranormal Activity, and I enjoyed the movie when it came out. Like, there's a part about it that's not really scary to me today, but I enjoyed it when it came out because it had this creepy element because it was very simplistic. Once they got to Paranormal 18, and then it's like, okay, well, now I've seen it all, but in that first movie, there was this simplicity about it. It's kind of like the Blair Witch Project. Like there's a simplicity to that, like shaky cam found footage format. And once it became like, hey, we're going to do 1,000 shaky cam films. Like I think it was, what was the movie that came out that the first Cloverfield, after the first Cloverfield, it felt like there was like a million copycat, like kind of shaky cam found footage.
I wouldn't say they copied off of Cloverfield. Cloverfield was 2008. Paranormal Activity was 2009. And then after Paranormal Activity showed up, that's when all the horror found footage stuff started popping up. Everybody wanted to be like Paranormal Activity because it was cheap, it made a lot of money, and it freaked everybody else out. And obviously, they made a billion sequels.
Yeah.
The reason why I like Blair Witch and why I like Paranormal Activity, one of the reasons, anyways, is because when we talked about, since I was a kid, I filmed things with a big VHS camera, And I mean, our home videos look like found footage if you think about it. So, I mean, in that respect, it's not supposed to feel like a movie. It's supposed to be shaky cam. It's supposed to be like an average, everyday person found this footage if they do it right. But I have like these rules of found footage where they have to get everything right or else everything falls apart.
Yeah.
So,
So speaking of that, where you were talking about like filming those things, I mentioned earlier at the very beginning of the stream that David, beyond doing the movie reviews, whether it was written or it was video format, that you also had a huge percentage of your time doing these short films or sketches or things like that with your brother. You would tell me about. You've shown me some of them, or you've shown me like images from some of them. So what was the first like one of those that you guys really took seriously
seriously,
and yeah, because I'm sure at first it was kind of like just
we did
you
a
know
lot of fun little things. Like I think the first video we ever made was a Power Rangers thing. But the first time we ever took something serious was when we made our first full length movie. It's called Extraordinary. And this was a superhero like story where these two friends kind of they they used to be friends, but now they kind of got torn apart because one person got sent to an insane asylum and whatever. They come back together at some point because in the past they found a green glowing crystal that nobody believes they found, and it gave them superpowers and all this. Now, the thing about this story was that we put a lot of work into post. So we did a lot of special effects, visual effects. I didn't, my brother did. And then I did the fight choreography. Um, we did we dubbed all our lines in post too, because we didn't want that buzzing of the sound of the camera.
yeah.
And then we in post, since we recorded everything, we had the sound effects, we had everything, and we made it surround sound too. And that was the first time we actually tried to do anything. That's honestly one of the only times we ever went that far into making a movie. After that, we did things like Buck and Drake, which is the movies that you talked about that were found on Amazon Prime. One of them might still be there. The other one's not on there. I don't know. But I haven't checked in a long time. Every once in a while, I'll get like a paycheck from Amazon Prime for like a penny or two because nobody's watching it, and the only people that actually watch it are like in Europe, not here. I don't know what that means, but it is what it is. So the one that's on there right now, I think, is Buck and Drake: The Search for Spooks. Um, and it's weird for Europe to be so interested in it if they're the ones that want to see it the most, because there's a lot of, I want to say inside jokes, but it is a locally filmed film in South Bend, Indiana. And there's all these actual locations in South Bend that nobody's going to know about unless they live in South Bend. So it's weird that people in Europe found it and keep watching it.
Yeah, isn't that wild though? Even with like YouTube, like, do you ever just find times where you're like looking through your analytics and you're like looking at who's watching? And for me, I like see like just random stuff like it'll break down there maybe the percentage of the last
Mm-hmm.
month of where people are watching, and obviously primarily it's like usually like the United States or like the UK, like stuff like that where that makes sense
Mm-hmm.
with the various friends that I've made on these platforms from those different places, or Australia is another one.
Mm-hmm.
But when the ones that always catch me off guard is like the small, like, I don't know, 2% in a month that'll be like from Thailand or like
Right.
Singapore, and I'm just like,
This is random. Like,
yeah,
where'd they come from?
yeah, like I mean, I'm all for it. I appreciate it, but I'm like, I don't know, like what. It depends. It depends. I never really see what movie it is that they are watching specifically. Like I think specifically, I think my Passion of the Christ review is probably the one that kind of draws in the widest array of people from all over the place, just because of the content of the film.
Hmm.
I got lucky with that one, man. Speaking of which, I've looked through your channel before, and you've had these videos that have spiked and had these
Hmm.
Like I only have like I think only 3 videos that have hit over 1,000 personally. You have quite a few, but you've also done like probably like
They're older videos. Yeah.
well, I know you also did that movie that you got a little bit of an early access to. Man, well, I think it was called The Wave, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that was one of my early screeners. That's my second most popular view right now with 5,000.
Yeah, so like stuff
Yeah.
like that. Like, what do you feel sometimes when you see videos like that just blow up out of nowhere compared to maybe something that you feel like you put a little bit more time into?
Honestly, I think it just has to do with not like supply and demand, but like kind of where you're like the only person who has it. Uh, and the early screeners for these obscure movies, either from Shutter or other things, I don't think Wave was on Shutter or anything, but nobody else was really talking about it. And so when I put out my review, that's what most people saw. And because of that, the more people that saw that one, the more it shoots up high when you start searching for it on YouTube. Um, and a lot of those videos where I have more views like that are reviews I don't really care for. If it weren't for the views, I feel like I would delete them just because I don't like how I used to do them. I wasn't as confident when I started, so I had a lot of stumbling over. I was mumbling a lot. I was just like, I was boring, honestly, when I first did them, and they're long videos and they're just boring. So if it weren't for the views, I probably would be like start over from where I stopped doing the interpreting part, which took forever, and it was just it wasn't garnering much from people, and I would have. So I don't know. I don't know for those videos that some people get flocked to. I don't. I. It
Yeah,
is what it is.
it's bizarre, man. It's very strange, and I found for me, right, like whenever I look back on older videos that like do pretty well, like now, like especially for the last few months, I've had like this little setup in my apartment here with like the Obi-Wan Kenobi behind me that people probably think like, why does this guy have Phantom Menace Obi-Wan Kenobi? And then like the little bookshelf in the back with like the various little the movies and little figurines. Like now I feel like I have like a little bit of a setup kind of, whereas before a huge chunk of my library at the beginning was all car reviews. I didn't have that confidence, and I think this may be prior to you and I
Yeah.
like really getting like to know each other. But like I was doing reviews just in my car, like, and
Right.
so I would prop it up like there on the dashboard, and I would just be driving, and I would look over here and there, like at a red light or just in general. It was just kind of supposed to be very casual, like I was talking. But the reality of the reason that I did that was simply because of the fact that I didn't have like that sense of confidence to just do this in front of people, right? Like so,
Mm-hmm.
like the idea of like my girlfriend who sees me do the most weird and random things of all time, I just felt uncomfortable filming a video even in the next room where people could just hear me going, "Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another video. We're going to be talking about My Little Pony." Like I didn't feel this comfort to do that just yet. So I was always doing stuff in my car. And I remember having friends tell me like, do you only film your videos in your car? And I always knew because I would always at that time I also didn't like to edit with audio like open audio. Like I was always editing with headphones on, usually like at 3 a.m. Um, and it was mainly because I just kind of wanted to have that time to get to comfortable with the tools of editing
Right.
and myself by myself. And so now looking at all this time later, like I don't care about filming stuff in front of people or doing this. Like that's part of why I got so comfortable with the idea of doing live streams is because I feel a lot more comfortable with my ability to speak. Whereas at the beginning, I knew what I wanted to say, and there's plenty of those reviews that I'm very, very proud of. When you go back to them, you can hear the buzzing of the car. If I ever drove over a section of the road that was a little bit like gravelly, you can hear like that bzzz at the in the back of the video. And there was plenty of times that I was filming something and in the middle of just like a really great thought, and maybe I'd use it for a comedic kind of editing at the moment, but the phone would flip down and like fall on the dashboard, and I'm in the middle of a thought, and those moments were just so definitely a bummer. Looking back on them, I look at those older videos and I'm just like, and some of them do pretty good. And one of those is Passion of the Christ. It's nearly 20 minutes long. I have 43,000 views on that video, and I'm like, dude, I would just kill for any of my more recent videos where I actually have a
Mm-hmm.
microphone and a ring light to actually have somewhat of a better success, because I feel like there's probably a lot of people who click on a video like Passion of the Christ and go, yeah, I'm not gonna watch more than a minute of this
Mm-hmm.
20-minute video of this guy talking about this movie in his car. Like, so it's strange, man. Looking here at some of the comments, I noticed that somebody was saying that the director of Freaky seems like he's a one-trick pony, and then it's actually the same director of Happy Death Day, which I did not know. I've only ever seen the first Happy Death Day, never saw the second one. Did you see the sequel?
I saw them both. Yeah, and actually, I have a novelization, a book for both movies that were put into one book. So
Oh,
I've seen both of them, and I saw where somebody had mentioned. I don't even remember who it was that mentioned this, but obviously, Happy Death Day was like the Groundhog Day version, horror
yeah,
version of that, and that Freaky's the horror version of Freaky Friday.
yeah. So it seems
So
that that's what he's going for, is kind of like this thing. And I see here that 123 Rock fan followed that up by saying that he thinks it'd be hilarious to see him do a horror version of Meet the Parents. I feel like that'd be kind of funny.
something like, isn't there a version kind of like that?
I don't know. I feel like we
Not
have
him, but
there is stuff like that. What's another one that I think would be funny to do? Like the Parent Trap. I'd like to see like a horror version of the Parent Trap.
there you
That'd be
go.
funny.
Yeah.
I see here real quick. I got a reference to it. My mom popped in here. Hey mom, how's it going? She said hey, and then I
Hi,
noticed
mom.
right under that 123 Rock fan said spam. So I think because of the hearts, he thinks that my mom is spam. So just so you know, that is my mom actually. But I do understand. Have you been getting all of those sexy lady, like it's usually like some like
I
a
think
Chinese
everybody
woman?
is. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's like a sexy lady, and it's like it'll put like I love this part with like a timestamp, and then the timestamp is like I don't know, like you like literally there's nothing even close to interesting at that timestamp. I think it's so funny seeing those on everybody's pages, bro.
Yeah. It's every at least every week. I feel like it pops up for me, and I'm like, all right, yeah, yeah. As if this makes any kind of realistic sense for this comment to exist, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's so funny to see stuff like that. Like I almost prefer the ones where it's like I don't know. Like I think I've commented on some of your stuff before, where it's like, oh, this guy that you like, like you would have
Now
responded to
that guy,
somebody.
yeah, I remember that, and that wasn't the same type of spam comment, but
Yeah,
it was just more like great content. Oh, okay, thanks.
yeah, you're just like, oh, thanks, and then you find out it's like, oh, this guy's been posting this on everybody's channel, or it's like the exact same, exact
Word for word,
copy and
yeah.
paste.
Hmm.
Yeah, copy and paste. I see here that a 123 Rock fan says he retracted his comment after he read the last name. It still popped up here, but yeah, it's all good. It did make me laugh though. Like internally, as you were talking, I saw the spam thing and I laughed. Um, I see right here, Cinematic says he asked if I reviewed Nacho Libre while driving. I did, in fact. And so that's kind of the thing, right? It's like so many of my reviews, my early reviews for anything from like Passion of the Christ to Nacho Libre to, or it's, I wouldn't even, sometimes I would be sitting in my room with my girlfriend and my mom, my sister would be home because I was living with my family at the time. And I would want to film a video and I want to edit it. We're just going to be chilling. And I would just be like, I'm gonna go to the car to edit to film a video, and so I'd literally leave my house to go out to the car just to sit there in like this contained bubble of silence
Yeah.
to film these videos, and yeah, it's funny because I look back at it now and goddamn, hold on, my Xbox turned off and my TV is all blue and my controller is not functioning. Anyway, um, yeah, so it's funny to look back and see those videos, and it's kind of cringy a little bit to look at those videos because I did so many great films in that format. Whereas now I feel way more comfortable with talking about things like I did the first two Nolan Batman movies. I specifically only the first two. I still haven't done Dark Knight Rises for some reason. I did like majority of the DCEU movies like that. A bunch of the early MCU movies. I just did a bunch of early reviews for that. Even for new movies, like I think I did like Fantastic Beast and Fantastic Beast: The Crimes of Grindelwald, all in my car. And yeah, it's kind of funny to go back and watch those videos and hear the cars in the back, hear the people honking around me, or like maybe the semi truck that's next to me that's like about to take off, and it's like, you hear the freaking engine, and I'm just like, oh god, what have I done with these videos?
And you got me to watch and review Nacho Libre.
I did, yeah. I remember that I told you to check it out because I can't remember. Had you not checked it out before? Was that your first
No,
time?
that was my first time seeing it. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a hell of a movie, man.
because I had seen Napoleon Dynamite, for instance, several times, but
Yeah.
that one I did not see.
And they're very similar, very similar. Like they're very similar while also being very different, obviously. But where they're similar, I feel, is like just a weird sense of tone that
Yeah.
writer or director. I don't know if it's the same director. I think it's the same director. That like stuff like I don't know, like the way that Napoleon Dynamite opens up with, like him like making a sandwich with like the director's name and all this kind of stuff, like the over the head shot where it's kind of like a nasty looking table, kind of like, or like maybe something like your grandma's table, and it's got like these plates, and he's like the way that he films these things, and then something like I don't know with Nacho Libre where he like it'll just show a cut of like his fish tank, and he like or a fish tank, and he shoves his hands in to get like the beads at the bottom where he like goes and whips off like a fabric off of a table and it like knocks something over. Like the way he films random stuff like that is just so similar to Napoleon Dynamite and Nacho Libre. But yeah, I love that movie a lot. I'm a huge Jack Black fan.
Yeah, same director, and he also directed this other little movie that I saw. I didn't know it was the same director as Masterminds, which was a movie about like a heist. It was also a comedy, and it had
That sounds familiar.
yeah, it had a number of Jason Sudeikis and
Oh yeah,
Zach Galifianakis and stuff like that.
yeah. I
Yeah,
have seen that movie. I have seen that movie. That movie was actually pretty funny. It's silly. It doesn't feel like Napoleon and Nacho Libre, so I didn't know it was the same director. But yeah, my dad and I always get a crack out of this one scene, and it was in the trailer, and I don't think my dad has ever even seen the movie, but he's referenced that scene a million times, where like Zach Galifianakis, he's playing like this dumb like country redneck kind of character. Have you seen it before?
Oh yeah,
Okay,
yeah. I just didn't know it was the same guy that did it. So
yeah, neither did I. So it was like there's that scene where he puts the gun in his like tries to holster it in like the back of his pants, and he ends up shooting through his pants, and he's like the bullet like just grazed betwixt my biscuits or something. I don't remember exactly the words he says, but just the way he says it and the like him and Kristen Wiig in that moment, I've always thoroughly enjoyed. Just how dumb that movie is. Like that's just one of those dumb watches. Speaking of Kristen Wiig, how do you feel about her being the upcoming villain for the new Wonder Woman? And just so you have more to respond to, how are you feeling about the whole kind of unprecedented release that it's going to be releasing in both theaters and HBO Max for the first time? Really, same day.
where to begin? Kristen Wiig, I think, is a good actress. I've seen her in dramatic roles and probably more comedic. I think she has the chops for a good dramatic role. I haven't seen a ton of the things that she could do, but I have faith that she can pull off whatever's given to her. And I have faith in that side of things. It's interesting to have her play that kind of a role.
Yeah.
But I'm not utterly shocked that she's in it. As far as the unprecedented thing, I've said this a few times before there was even COVID all around us. The closest theater to me is over 100 miles away. I can't go to a theater. And
Yeah.
when our theater in town was open, it was dirty. The screen was off center. It was blurry. The sound was off. Like they had the wrong speaker going at the same time for the surround sound stuff. It was just not a great experience. It's just an old theater, but it's been since bought out and it has closed down. We used to have 2 theaters in town. Now we have 0, and both of them weren't that great. So now the closest theater that I have is over 100 miles away. So there was no way I was going to go anyways. And now that we have COVID, I have the personal belief that we shouldn't really be doing anything unless it's necessary or essential to life or whatever I usually say. So I wasn't going to go for that reason. So I have 2 things going against going to a theater. So I'm actually happy that it's coming to, HBO Max, so I can actually see it when everybody else does at the same time, and I don't have to wait 2-3 months after the case, which is normally what I'd have to do. So I'm happy with that. A lot of my media, as far as movies are considered, I have a vast digital library. The discs that I do have right now, they are getting torn into by little ones that I have in the house running amok. They go into every single day, they go into my DVD and Blu-ray stash and take them out, pull out the CDs and get them all smudged. They crack them, and it's just nice to have digital media sometimes. So I'm not really despising the fact that they're doing theater and HBO Max at the same time. I think it's the best of both worlds for whoever wants to go to theater, whoever wants to stay home can do it. And I
Yeah.
think that's a good thing.
For sure, I think it's an unprecedented time, but I think at the end of the day, and you and I've had this discussion. I'm working like almost every day, so I'm always out. So I think I have a little bit less of like a maybe I just feel more comfortable being out there in the world amongst the people, even though it is still a crazy time. We're the new norm is walking around with these masks and constantly hand sanitizing anytime I have to go to the restroom and this and that. And so the movies has been I've gone to the theme parks a handful of times. I've filmed those videos for those, but lately I haven't been going, and the movie theater is like that one thing that I'll be doing outside of work from time to time, and obviously like the grocery store, which is just obvious. But yeah, I think it's awesome that they're doing this for the various people. It's very, very curious. It's very interesting to see how all these companies are handling this right now, right? Because we have Disney who just did the whole thing with Mulan, and that, from what I understand, did not go well for them as far as not only the reception of the film overall, because I know that you really love the film. I did thoroughly enjoy it. I saw it a second time, and I think it's a good movie. Like whenever people are like, "Oh, it's terrible," and then usually you ask them why they didn't like it, and it usually revolves around the whole idea that Mushu wasn't in it in the songs, and I'm just like, okay, well they announced that 4,000 years ago that wasn't going to be the case. So you can't go into a movie and be like, well, all this stuff they said wasn't going to be in the movie isn't in the movie, so I don't like it. It's like, okay, well that's not really a clear way to go about things. But I guess that didn't go well for them, and now we have Disney Plus releasing Soul next year, the Pixar, or not next year, next month,
Right.
the Jamie Foxx Pixar film. So I'm very much looking forward to that. And there's no extra charge for that one. We have Wonder Woman doing this now, and there's talks about various other things doing that. We're finally getting that long-awaited Snyder cut on HBO Max. Whenever the hell that's going to come out next year. And we're just in this unprecedented time where we're getting this big content released on streaming services for the first time that would typically be intended for a theater. So I'll ask you a question that a lot of people have been talking about, and I'm curious: do you think that what's been happening with COVID and even tracing back to I think some of the earlier VOD, straight to VOD things, like when Invisible Man or Onward went straight to Disney Plus after a few weeks? Invisible Man was available for renting for like $20, and Trolls World Tour was another one of those early ones, and the Scooby Doo movie that was supposed to go to
Mhm.
theaters. What are your thoughts as far as like how this will affect theaters in the future? Obviously, you already have stated your fact that you're not really much of a theater goer, but how do you feel about this affecting movie theaters moving forward?
I am honestly not sure. I don't think they're gonna shut down like theaters as a whole. I know a lot of people have said for years that it's an industry that's slowly been dying. I don't really think that's necessarily the case. I think there's plenty of people that are really, really gung ho about going to the theater because it's an experience above all else. And that's not something that they can just outright kill. And plus, financially speaking, I'm pretty sure these movie industries get a lot more money from the theater than they do from these streaming in home things. So we live in a world where people are very centered on money. So I don't think that's something that they're going to get rid of unless people stop going to the theater. And I know COVID's making people kind of resistant about going to the theater, but people are still going.
Yeah.
And once we see, COVID start going down, I think we're going to see theater people start going back a lot more and more. So I don't think we will see theaters die or anything, but I do think we'll see more of what we're seeing with either going straight to digital at the same time as a theater release, like with Wonder Woman, or something more along the lines of coming to digital a couple weeks out after the theater instead of months.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I am very curious to see how this affects everything moving forward because yeah, I don't think that film exhibition as an overall thing is going to go away, right? Like people love to go to the theaters, and once this whole COVID thing has settled down, I can see it doing well. And I live in a very tourist heavy area, right? I live right in Central Florida. I mean, not far, like literally like 20 something minutes away from Disney World. That area is constantly popping. And I work in a tourist centered area too. So constantly have tourists of all kinds coming in, which makes it scary during all of COVID because I still have to go to work and I still have to make money, but I have to be in these very tourist heavy areas where people just don't care. And listen, man, sadly, Florida lives up to its hype as far as being just like a state of just weirdos and crazy people and just people that don't really give a shit about what's going on. So you do have a lot of people that kind of just do whatever they want. That are walking around with no mask, and that's an unfortunate situation. So I'm very much hoping that things get back to normal somewhere within the next year, right? But it doesn't look like it's going to be the case anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Luckily, though, what I will say, especially near the beginning of things reopening, since I was part of those people who decided to go to things like Disney World or the movie theaters near the beginning, I mean, the experience of being able to experience these places where everybody was still really, really afraid and there was like nobody there was quite amazing. I mean, I think the first movie I saw in theaters was New Mutants, which you recently just did a review for. I haven't
Mm-hmm.
checked it out yet, but I'm definitely going to. And um, for New Mutants, I mean, dude, I think there was maybe like five other people in the theater, and that was fairly spread out. So to be able to see a movie like that on the big screen for the first time in months of having not been able to see a movie on the big screen and have only five other people be in the theater was quite an amazing experience. It reminded me of before the pandemic, where I would just go see random movies on random days that I was off at maybe a random showing early in the day, and there would be like nobody in there, like two or three other people in there. Um, so I do want the theater exhibition system to continue to grow, but obviously, like I think it's good that we have things like what's happening with Wonder Woman happening. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
I guess for me, like I guess I can see some people complaining like, oh man, I don't want to. If I already have HBO Max, I don't want to go to the theaters, but I want to see Wonder Woman in theaters, but I don't. But like now I'm in a place where it's like I don't really want to spend that extra money because I'm already paying for HBO Max and it'll be right there. I have AMC A list, so I already pay like a monthly subscription price, and I can watch up to three movies a week with AMC A list. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm chilling on that. So that's why it's like when Wonder Woman comes out, I'm definitely gonna go see it in
Right.
theater. But of course, I do want to push safety, right? Like it sounds hypocritical because it's like I'll go to the theater, but like fuck yeah, America. But at the same time, it's like wear your mask, got to be safe. And I'm grateful though that my experiences with the theater thus far have felt very clean. It does feel like is that element of there's not a lot of people going to the theaters, so you don't really feel like you're ever like, oh man, like this isn't what I expected. Whereas something like Disney, like the last time I went to Disney, it's funny because they're like, oh, we're still at 25, 30% capacity, but it just feels like bullshit now. Because the last time I went, we literally just walked around the park, like did one big circle around the park and just walked out. And that's only because we have annual passes, so we can do that. But we went and it was like loaded, like there was lines out the wazoo, and I was trying to stay away from people, and I was like, yeah, we got to get out of here. This doesn't feel like 30%. It feels like another busy day at Disney. Um, we've talked about it. So, do you see yourself like how are you handling this year, man? How has this year been for you? Not only on a safety level, but like just mentally, man. How are you feeling after this year?
This year, I think, is mentally drained everybody.
Yeah,
For the most part, I've been indoors. I've been here for a majority of the time. The only times that I've gone out is to go grocery shopping at the start of the pandemic. And for a majority of it, I shopped at the grocery store once a month. Now it's about twice a month. But now that we're kind of getting another spike, it might go back to 1 month. And every weekend, for the most part, not every weekend, but pretty much, went out to my in-laws, and they're kind of subdued where they're at too. And from what I understand, they've been taking precautions as well. So that's been my social, thing. I've been going over there every weekend for the day, and coming back, and that's pretty much been my year. For the most part, not been social other than that. And now that they've been like exposed to something, can't go over there anymore. So staying here the whole time, kind of going stir crazy sometimes. Obviously, I've made some weird videos recently.
Hey man, I gotta say I like that. I'm gonna go ahead and plug those right now for anybody who's interested in hearing David's beautiful singing voice. Um, he recently did these fun karaoke videos over on his channel for multiple Disney movie songs, including things like "Under the Sea" and "Be Our Guest." So I do highly recommend you guys check those out. I see some comments here really quickly. We have Cinematic saying good night, that he has to work tomorrow, but he'll watch the video later. Thank you so much for watching as you did, or while you did. Worst reviews. What's going on, man? How's it going? Appreciate you stopping by. And 123 Rock Fan says that Panera Bread has been the worst at safety. I actually haven't been to Panera Bread in probably like a year and a half. So I'm curious in the comments. Go ahead and comment why you feel they've been terrible at safety.
Man,
I've
my
been to
closest Panera I have is like 80 miles away.
holy
Ish.
crap. So
I'm kind of in a small town.
I was
Yeah.
going to ask you that. So you live in a very small town, obviously, man. That's
Mhm.
and what state is it again? Michigan,
It's
right?
Michigan. It's pretty darn north Michigan. It's not in the Upper Peninsula part, but it's pretty close to that. Yeah, there's not many people in town. There's like a fork in the road, and that's been our town. It's like we don't have many. We do have McDonald's. We have Subway. Yeah, there's like there's like three McDonald's. They couldn't get like other things to put in there as well, but there's plenty of McDonald's for what it's worth. There's a Walmart. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
about
man.
it.
Small town. That's interesting, right? We have this very different kind of thing. Like I grew up in Miami, which is a few hours from where I am right now, but I always grew up in these very like big popular areas. Like I always used to see like my friends share like memes of like I live where you vacation. And it's so true, right? Like and I've always lived in places like that. Like a few years ago I was living in Vegas for a short period of time, and now I'm in the Orlando area, and like literally just the road I live on alone has like a Walmart, multiple like grocery stores, like every restaurant you can think of, like literally on the road that I live on. Everything from a Denny's to a Fridays to a Ale House to a McDonald's to Chick-fil-A to Kentucky Fried Chicken. To just the list goes on. So it is crazy to hear that because when I actually did a road trip from Nevada to Florida when I moved back from Vegas, and it was quite surprising for me. It was a different like taste to drive through a lot of these states and go through these small town sections. Like when we were in New Mexico, I don't know if it's true or not, but they must film like westerns in New Mexico, man. Because have you ever been to New Mexico before? It is a ghost town. There are just huge stretches. At one point, we thought we were going to run out of gas because there would be like town up ahead in 5 miles, and we'd show up and it'd be like one house with an old lady in a rocking chair, like in the front of the house, like literally something out of like a horror movie.
Mhm.
Then the next building would be this abandoned house that has like broken windows, graffiti on it, and you could like literally see inside the window that the ceiling had collapsed inside the building. So it's just like this broken down house next to the house of the lady in the rocking chair. And then the next building would be like a Dollar Tree, and then it'd be like, thanks for visiting, I don't know, One Tooth Town. And then you just move on and then you'd move on. And it'd be these long stretches of drives of like just desert and cows. And then it'd be like, oh, you have another town coming in 10 miles. And they'd maybe, well, I remember one time we were starving driving through New Mexico. And we found at Arby's like hours later. Like at one point, we felt like delirious because we were so hungry, and we kept saying town up ahead, and then we'd go in and it'd be these small towns. Now, in no way, shape, or form. I would never assume that your town is like that because New Mexico, I'm telling you,
No.
dude, it was like a ghost town. Like there were towns that we went into where it was like town up ahead. We'd go in and I swore we never saw a single person. Like I think New Mexico as like a place on this in this country is like it's forgotten land. Like it's just like they must go out there to film westerns. That's the only thing I kept thinking while I was out there. But it is interesting to hear that you have this small town like feel and vibe that like, you're 80 miles away from a Panera Bread or like 100 miles away from your nearest theater. Like it's crazy with these different lives while also being so similar at the same time. It's wild. But yeah, man. So, question to you: is there anything specifically that you'd like to plug over on your channel? Something that you really worked on recently that you really would like people to check out? Anything you got coming out really soon?
Honestly, not really. I mean, if it was last month, I would be like, oh yeah, interpreting the scares. I'm doing 30 days of 30 horror films. Not doing that anymore. I know that I'm gonna at some point soon watch the Come Play movie. It just
Yeah,
came out kind of to home theater premiere, whatever it's called. Um, Seen people talk about that. I don't know too much about it. But
it's cool, man. I like that one. I thought it was a good time. It's not like anything like mind blowing, but it's a good time. I found it to be like an entertaining horror watch. I think it's a PG-13 movie, so it can only be so intense. But
mhm.
I found it to be well acted, engaging, fun. It was a nice palate cleanser after watching The Empty Man the week prior.
And other than that, I would be like, well, if we end up doing George of the Jungle 2, you can look out for that one.
Yeah, yeah. So that's a possibility. We did George of the Jungle review over on David's channel not too long ago, or literally just a couple days ago. So if you guys go to the link down below in the description box, there's a crap ton of videos on his channel. Like genuinely, like he has so many videos that he puts out. And you mentioned interpreting the scares, but anybody who is a horror fan, go back and check out those videos. I'm still catching up. I think the next video I saw, I'm finally in my watch later getting to your Resident Evil review. So I am looking forward to hearing your thoughts on that because that's a franchise that I've had like kind of like a not the greatest experience with. I can't remember what the name. What's the name of that director? Paul
Paul
West.
W. or whatever Anderson. Yeah.
Yeah, that guy Anderson. So um, I remember when I was watching, and I do want to revisit the Resident Evil movies because I know that you enjoy them for what they are from what I remember. Um, but I'd like to revisit them because I think when I was younger, my mentality was like, oh, well, this is nothing like the games, which I just feel like I gotta like I have a different perspective on those things today. Whereas when I was a kid, it was like, oh, there's nothing like the games. But funny enough, because that director, he's just made some movies for me that are sometimes kind of stinkers, that are a little bit more style than substance. But one movie that he's made that's not necessarily a great movie, but I love it to death is the first Mortal Kombat movie that came out in the 90s. I mean, just
Yeah.
pure over the top
I
cheese.
saw that not too long ago.
Did you? Yeah.
Yeah, that was different. Again, I never played the Mortal Kombat games either. I didn't really play the Resident Evil. I had played bits and pieces of them. So I really didn't have expectations based off of the video games. But even so, I'm one of those people that have unpopular opinions when it comes down to adaptations because I don't really care how close they follow source material at all. All I
Yeah.
want is for a movie to make sense within the confines of its own set of rules. And if it does, then great. I've always said, I don't care if they redo X-Men and have Wolverine be this little girl. I don't care as long as it makes sense. I'm gay. I don't care.
Yeah.
Because if I want it to be exactly the same as it was before, I just watch what it was before and be done with it. I don't
Yeah.
care. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean that's a good mindset to have, right? Moving like with any time that they do remakes or adaptations, I think we are in this place where people are like, "Oh, it has to be better than the last thing, or it's not good at all." And I'm just not in that mentality. It doesn't have to be the same. I prefer it to be different. a perfect example for me is that I'm a huge Chucky fan. Like I love Chucky. I think that's something that you and I probably earlier in our friendship kind of talked about.
Yeah.
And then you ended up doing your series of videos on them. And they're these incredibly bizarre films that are not necessarily great, but there's just something about them that I find incredibly charming. I literally have a tattoo leg that I'm working on right now. My left calf, I have a bunch of characters wrapped around them, all fighting together, and I'm going to fill it in with color, and it's going to be badass. But right now, it's literally Chucky, Venom, Stitch, Jack Skellington, and the Joker. Very strange setup of characters. But I had to have Chucky on there because he just represents what I love about crazy horror. And man, I lost my train of thought. But what were we talking about before? What were you saying? What was the last thing you said?
I don't know. I
Oh,
lost my train of thought too.
I got it. So source material. The reason I brought Chucky up was because when the new Chucky movie came out, the Child's Play remake, a lot of people came to me and like, "Oh, you must hate this movie," and I actually quite enjoyed it, but it's just not. It's not Chucky to me. Like it's not like Brad Dourif as Chucky is Chucky. Like what that voodoo possessed, like the asshole doll, is what makes that movie. But I appreciated that if they were gonna make a remake, if you're gonna do it, make it different. And I enjoyed the fact that they went, instead of making it something like this voodoo possessed doll who needs to trick this younger kid into letting him transfer his soul into his body, and instead it's like, hey, we're gonna make this doll who is his wiring is all messed up, his programming is weird, and because he wants to be your best friend, it's like he wants to be your best friend so bad that if he can't be your best friend, nobody can be your best friend, and he's just gonna kill everybody. I appreciated that more as being like a very different take on the character rather than them making a remake and it just feeling like a rehash of the original. Like that's more where my mindset is now. That's why I enjoyed the Mulan remake. Is it better than the original? No, not in my opinion, but I enjoyed it because I felt like it was different enough to at least warrant its existence.
And Chucky, I'm as weird as it is. I did have like expectations because we had the Chucky voice, attitude, and in general the concept, the logic behind what's going on in the movie. I liked the idea of what they were doing in that remake for Chucky. I liked it enough. But there was certain things about maybe in general, if this was the only version of Chucky we ever had, I don't know if it would have ever spawned several sequels. 'Cause I don't think it immediately had that kind of wonder. I don't exactly like possessed doll movies, like I've said before, but I think possession makes a little bit more sense than the wiring of the new Chucky, and plus the new Chucky, its look was kind of weird.
Yeah, very jarring. I hated the face. I hated the eyeballs, and most of the time it felt like an unfinished concept, like as far as the look of the character. I feel like maybe they were kind of leaning into that to make it a little creepy, but the if anything, if there's anything that you can ever praise about those Chucky films before with Brad Dourif, is the animatronic work on the like in the puppeteering. Like that, I feel like they pulled off Chucky's look in each of the movies. I think his best look too later in the franchise, like in like Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky, when he's got like all the scars and stuff. Like he looks really good. Like it's you.
Looks like a horror character.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I see here we got 123 Rock fans saying that it was announced today that the writers of Bob's Burgers are writing Deadpool 3. And then he asked, what do we think about that? So I'll go ahead and pass it off to you first. Well, what do you think about that?
I am not very familiar with Bob's Burgers. I have no idea what I think about that. I like the writers when we had them before. If it's anything like the first or second one, I guess I'd be fine with that. I actually prefer Deadpool 2 over 1. I know that's another one of those unpopular opinions that I have. That a lot of people prefer the first one. I never actually thought the first one was super special or anything that I hadn't seen before, when everybody else thought that. So when I saw the first one, I was like, it's fine. It's basically what I expected out of Deadpool. But the second one I liked more because I liked the story and I liked the diverse characters in it, and I liked the narrative basically of what it was doing, and I liked the jokes better. So It is. I don't know anything about Bob's Burgers, unfortunately. I know a lot of people like it. I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, I do recommend Bob's Burgers. It's one of those easy to watch kind of shows. I don't know if you're a fan of like The Simpsons or Family Guy or something along those lines. You know, follows a family. You have the kids, you have the dad, the mom, and it's like kind of like a more adult kind of comedy animated show. This one, I would say it's not as harsh and not as vulgar as like Family Guy can be sometimes, like very on the nose, but it definitely has a lot of implication and about a lot of things that are sexual or drugs and drinking and stuff like that. So it's funny in this kind of like almost more innocent way, but that's the characters and like the family dynamic that is absolutely hysterical. If you're ever looking for something to just kind of throw on that like similar to those other shows, there may
Mhm.
be things like seasons later that are referred to, but for the most part, it's one of those shows that you can just kind of watch as you go. Like, you know, if you just sitting down and have a snack or something, it's kind of just easy to throw on. I love Bob's Burgers. I recently did a review for all of the seasons except for the one that's currently airing on TV right now. And that video got like no views. Nobody gave a shit. And but it's okay. And I thoroughly love Bob's Burgers. So with that said, I do look forward to it. But you know, it's one of those things where the writers of Bob's Burgers is not Deadpool. You know what I mean? Like it's a very it's not even that kind of show in the same kind of human not human I'm sorry, the same kind of humor. So like for me, like I am very curious to see what they do moving forward. I see here that 123 Rock Fan says that he feels based on those writers that he feels like this will may have a little bit more heart, and that and then he says the second one had some heart though too. Yeah, I would agree that the second one probably has a little bit more of a touching story. The first one definitely leaned more into comedy. I think I'm in that, I guess, the majority that I prefer the first Deadpool over the second one. I love both of them. I think they're great, both great films. I also really enjoyed going. I saw the Once Upon a Deadpool in theaters. I really enjoyed that one. Did you see that at all?
I did eventually see it. I don't think it's as good as
No way.
the no. It's interesting in certain regards, but it's kind of like. Did you ever see Days of Future Past, the Road Cut?
I did, yeah.
I mean, that's barely any different at all. Either. So it's like,
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things where it's like it's like here this exists. You can watch this. Like the only thing that made Once Upon a Deadpool worth it were those like the framing around the film, the whole like the thing they took from the Princess Bride that they
mhm,
brought into that same actor, and they have fun with that premise. But just having the film censored was definitely um, just took away. Like I remember like watching it in that
right.
scene in Deadpool 2 where he gets like torn in half by
Hmm.
Juggernaut, and then like they cut away from it in the Once
Hmm.
Upon a Deadpool. I was like, oh, geez, like stuff like that was like definitely a bummer. I see 123 Rock fan said there. He goes, it's Once Upon a Time in Deadpool, basically PG-13. It is
Yeah.
PG-13, yeah. So like they cuss and they do certain things, but like for instance, a good example is at the beginning of Deadpool 2. Um, there's a whole sequence in the original movie where he's like a stripper for a second and he's like killing everybody like in the strip club, and then he like breaks down, he's like killing all these guys walking up to this camera, and this guy's running around on fire, and you watch the Deadpool 2 like regular cut, and he's just like slicing them up, there's blood flying everywhere. And when you watch Once Upon a Deadpool, he's slicing people and he's shooting everybody, but there's no blood squirts, like a lot of the language cuts out. I think that whole front section with the whole thing where he's like on the stripper pole with the long hair, like that's cut out of the film. So, you do lose part of what makes that movie, it's part of what makes Deadpool Deadpool. I am looking forward moving forward. I am looking forward to what's happening moving forward, is what I meant to say, because I know that Disney and them have said that it's still going to retain what it is that makes Deadpool Deadpool. I don't think they're going to like say like, oh, we're only doing PG or PG-13 Deadpool moving forward. Um, so I see here that my buddy, we got Sean in here, Movies and Maher with a Viking. We recently did a collab together for Crumpus. You guys should go check that out. But he's concerned it won't be R rated. I have a feeling it's still going to be R rated. I feel like they're not going to remove that element just because they know what kind of movie it is. Like Disney now, they own Fox, so they own things like the Alien franchise, if I'm not mistaken. And it's like I have an idea that if they continue to make movies in that franchise, that they'll hopefully still keep things a little bit on the harder edge, that they won't just Disneyfy everything. So fingers crossed on that. But yeah, I mean, this is a very long-winded response to just say I think those writers will do a good job. I am looking forward to the next installment, and I hope that they do keep that R rating. And if anything, David actually said in a comment section on Facebook earlier today that he has a feeling that maybe, like, I don't know, they'll, like, he was joking, but he said something along the lines of, like, there being a scene with talking birds and like
Right.
singing and stuff like that with Deadpool. And I'd actually honestly like that. Like, I would love for them to be very on the nose about the fact that that Disney acquired Deadpool. Um, Maybe like a scene where he does have like these little animated birds that he sings with. Maybe they get killed somewhere between, or he kills them, or something that can make fun of it. Yeah, I don't know how far Disney would allow that to go, but do you
They
think
make
they'll make that kind of joke going
Well,
forward?
didn't they make a joke in Once Upon a Deadpool about the possible merger or acquisition?
Yeah, they
Uh,
do during the, like, I think he looks at the camera at some point and says something about like Disney acquiring it. I think that's when they were establishing the whole thing where he has the bleeper button, the for any time anybody cussed
yeah,
that they bleeped. Yeah,
yeah. So if they did it in that, obviously they would probably make some kind of nod to the fact that that's what happened.
yeah. No, I see here too that that Sean also mentioned um, that he wants him to be in his own universe, R rated. That he doesn't mind if he pops up in the MCU. Um,
Yeah, it's
As
PG
PG-13.
13. Yeah,
I would agree with that. Like, I would like to see him pop up. I think that, though, as much as I would think he'd be awesome in these sequences, I feel like he would ruin so much of the weight of these moments because, I don't know, let's take something like, how cool would it have been to have seen him in something like Avengers Endgame, right? But, like, imagine some of those really epic sequences, and then, I don't know, like Captain America saying, like, that, like, nice low gravelly voice, Avengers assemble. You know what I mean? Like that great shot at the end where he just says assemble and everybody goes crazy. And you just got Deadpool looking at the screen like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like it would take away from
yeah.
the
He would, and then he would be mentioning something like Winter Soldier at some point. Like, remember when this happened? It would feel weird because it's not part of the same world.
yeah.
So like it's cool. It would be cool to have him be there just in the background, but if they have any kind of focus on him at all, then it would take away from what they already had going for it. So I don't know.
Yeah, it is strange because, like, even with something like the Deadpool movies, I've always thought to myself, like, it's all about the jokes, right? Like, you need to know what you're watching. You can't take it overly serious. When you watch that first one, it seems like it's in its own universe, its own version of X-Men universe. And then the sequel, we get that, like, in the sequel takes place in modern times, you know what I mean? Like, they have modern weapons and futuristic weapons. But then there's that scene where he's in the Xavier Institute and the door behind him is opened and he sees all of those X-Men
Right,
with the cast members from
right.
the prequel series of the X-Men films, which could span anywhere between the 70s to the 90s. Or I think the first class took place when, in the 60s or 70s? I think
I
it's in the
forget
60s.
when it was. I want to say 70s, but I'm not sure.
That's one thing
Um,
about those movies that pisses me off, man, is the timeline and the X-Men Fox movies just got so messy, especially when they introduce, like, First Class is great. I think it takes place in like the late 60s, if I'm not mistaken, because in the 70s is, no, you're right. 70s is for, wait, no. Yeah, so 60s I think was First Class because there's decade jumps, and then 70s was for Days of Future Past, then 80s was for Apocalypse, and then 90s was for Dark Phoenix. And you mean to tell me that nobody aged even a little bit? And you mean to tell me that within the next year or so, or the next 10 years or so, it's supposed to line up with the timeline of the first X-Men movie that took place in the first early 2000s, and James McAvoy goes from James McAvoy to Patrick
Patrick
Stewart in
Stewart. Yeah,
a matter of 10. I mean, you mean to tell me that somebody as beautiful as Michael Fassbender goes from somebody as gorgeous as him to somebody as ancient as Ian McKellen in 2 seconds?
very stressed life.
Yeah, honestly, dude. Like, I thought Obi-Wan aged quickly.
Yeah, that's one thing about their their series is the kind of the production design and trying to explain what the setting is even doing. And Daredevil, or not Daredevil, Deadpool. Keep getting these two names confused. I don't think it matters that much about him seeing them because it's like breaking the fourth wall. He could be seeing them, and then he's making the jokes about what happens in Logan and things like that. So he's like in his own time period. He could show
Yeah,
up
exactly.
in the first class. He could show up, in New Mutants time frame too. So it's like it doesn't really matter for him. So that's another reason why it would be weird to kind of see him with the Avengers and MCU. Is he an MCU character, or is he just kind of like a cameo like Stan Lee would be? I don't know.
Yeah, that's almost what I feel like he would have to be, right? Like almost like somebody's watching TV like in the MCU, and then like Deadpool's on the screen, and maybe like in the background he like is like waving at the camera or something. It would have to be so on the nose because of how the timeline is with him, where he's really kind of he has the ability to be everywhere and anything. And this last movie, I think part of why I didn't like the second one as much is that after everything, he gets his hands on the time machine technology and he just starts porting everywhere, which leads to great comedy. Like I love that whole credits portion where he goes back to X-Men Origins or to him like signing the contract for Green Lantern and all that kind of stuff, and like just killing like all that is just priceless. Like I think they did a great job with it. But in the comic books, that's a huge part of the whole Deadpool kind of intrigue is him having this ability to time travel with Cable and just going and fucking shit up. And so I can't help but feel like he would just be like it's just gonna be him all over the place. So to try to integrate him into an MCU film on like a serious level would probably not really. I feel like it would take away from the the weight of the story. You know what I mean?
Right. And I never read any of the comics with Deadpool and Cable. But after I had seen at least I think it was after the second one, I started reading some of the comics that they came out with Deadpool, and I was interested because yeah, the movies got them pretty close to how the
Yeah.
comics are portrayed. So I'm not much for source material when it comes down to expecting much, but it's nice to see when they do actually get those characters pretty close.
Yeah, for sure. I think he's one of those that they definitely did well. And anytime I see him in anything or play a game, like there's a Deadpool video game, like they have a consistent tone with his character that I think that Ryan Reynolds just understood, and he plays the role so well. Like I thoroughly enjoy him as the character. Um, but yeah, I think the first one is a better one for me. I am looking forward to the third one. I do enjoy the second one though. My only gripe with the second one is I feel like because of the jokes that they make and how on the nose they are sometimes, it feels like that movie's humor might be dated a little bit moving forward. I don't know, for somebody who may watch Deadpool 2 like I don't know 10 years from now and maybe doesn't understand like Ryan Reynolds or Deadpool calling Cable like Thanos, you know what I mean? Like stuff like
Yeah,
that. Like
yeah, that's
it's so
good.
like because of right now, like if you watch it, you get all the jokes, but like moving forward, I think they made like a joke about like dubstep and stuff like that, and like dubstep isn't even as big right now as it was like a
Yeah.
few years ago. You know what I mean? So that's one of those things. But I do thoroughly enjoy that movie for sure.
I've always been a fan of like pop culture references and things like that, in pretty much anything, and Deadpool's really good for that.
Yeah.
The Lego Star Wars holiday thing, that was also pop
Oh
culture
yeah.
reference full of that.
Love that, man. Had a great time with that one. I see Rashad is in here. What's going on, man? How are you? Um, but yeah, I love that Star Wars holiday special, man. Like I think it was such a great way of just kind of poking fun at everything that people just scream at each other in comment sections about Star Wars. It was made with love. There was an element about it that was taken a little bit seriously. Like I think more around the message of like failure and the message of like kind of taking it easy on yourself and like the message of friendship and all that great stuff. Message of hope. There's always that great through line through Star Wars. But I really like that holiday special because they were able to just poke fun at everything and make every reference to everything that is possibly that could possibly happen in Star Wars, or even something as silly as like having like the three Obi-Wans that were like "Hello there." I really enjoyed that. Like just such silly little things. I see my mom says she's out. Later, mom. Loved you. Love you. I said loved
Bye,
you. I love
mom.
you, mom. Have a good one. And she says, please come visit your mom. I will come visit soon, mom. I'm sorry. Um, but yeah, I do thoroughly enjoy that special. So question to you, man. We're probably gonna wrap this up soon. I got a couple things to take care of tonight before I go to bed. I got to work in the morning. But I definitely want to kind of once again open up the floor to you. Is there anything that you're working on that you want to plug? Is there anything specifically, maybe some new videos you just put out that you want people to go check out? Anything like that that you want to try to put a light on?
Um, I don't think so. Like I said, I'm winding down with my stuff. We're gonna see the daily stuff like stop pretty soon. Actually, I think tomorrow might be the last daily video that I have coming up. Um,
Wow, that's crazy. End of an era. End of an era. Are you going to be doing a bunch of holiday stuff moving forward for like Christmas season?
I initially planned to, and I was trying to figure out a Christmassy name for how I did with horror. I did interpreting the scares, and I was trying to figure out something similar, like interpreting the something
Yeah.
for holiday theme. But I don't know if I will do that or not. It's completely undetermined at this point. I mean, every year I watch, a whole bunch of Christmas movies and stuff. And obviously on my written website, I've reviewed pretty much every Christmas movie to date. But I don't know. Obviously, I do want to eventually kind of revisit some of those classic Christmas stories on here and see some of the stuff I haven't seen before. Um, but I guess TBA on that one.
Gotcha. Yeah, man. I think for me, I don't even really know what I'm going to review this Christmas season. I know I want to touch on things like the Santa Claus trilogy with Tim Allen. Um, I want to do those Christmas Chronicles movies. I think that they're called the ones with God, who's in those movies? It's on Netflix. Who's the main star of those movies again?
Ego.
Yeah, God, well, I can't remember
I
his name
can't
right
think
now.
of his name, but I can tell you it's Ego.
What is its name right now? It's one of the most classic actors of all time. I feel like ashamed of myself at this very moment in time. But yeah, so there's that, right? Like I want to do that. I'm gonna do those movies. I might just throw a couple random ones in there for like I don't know that I'm gonna try to do because I'm still catching up on horror. If you guys have been watching, you guys have seen that I've done like a bunch of horror still to this point. I have my collab coming soon for an American Werewolf in London with Blacktastic. I'm gonna be doing
Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell. There you go. Wow, man, I feel ashamed of myself. But yeah, I want to see those Christmas Chronicle movies with Kurt Russell. But yeah, I have all these horror movies that I'm still coming out with that I still haven't reviewed because I ended up watching like an ass ton of them for October, and just with work and just filming and editing time, and I just took way too long. So I have a bunch of collabs coming out. I'm probably gonna have horror movies coming out all through the rest of the year, to be honest, because of how many I watched. I'm only 4 movies into both the Saw franchise. As far as my reviews, I already watched all of them. But as far as the Saw franchise and the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, I'm only 4 movies into both of them. So I have quite an abundance of films coming out. Were you going to say something there?
Yeah, tomorrow, my last review for who knows? It's gonna be Looney Tunes back in action.
Nice, nice. Although, so you
Yeah.
just told me you were going to watch that. That's the one with Brendan Fraser, right?
Yeah, I had to watch it because when we were watching George of the Jungle, it kind of reminded me of some other live action cartoon movies, especially with Brendan Fraser. And I started wanting to watch Brendan Fraser and all of his stuff. I want to go back and I want to watch Mummy at some point. I want to see Encino Man again. I want to see some of these, more obscure movies, some other stuff that I've never seen before that he has done.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, he's one of those great actors that I just thoroughly enjoy, man. Like, I think some of my big standout movies. I did do all of the Mummy movies earlier this year, and now I think I just did the a classic night, like the one from the 30s with Blacktastic recently for in October. So I am going to slowly make my way into doing the sequels to the classic black and white Universal, like do the Universal classic Mummy movies. But outside of that, I did all the Brendan Fraser ones earlier this year, and they were great to revisit, man. Like such a great time. Like there's just such fun movies. Even the third one, which I know is not people's like favorite. I think Brendan Fraser. When you watch those again, let me know if you feel the same as I do. Where I feel like he's over the top and he's fun in those first two, but in the third film, It's almost like the director just told him to like do the yelling Brendan Fraser thing at all times, where he's just like over the top at all times. But I still really enjoy that movie. But I'd like to revisit Encino Man. I saw Encino Man maybe like 4 years ago. Like I revisited it and I had a great time with it. One of my favorites with him is Airheads. I don't know if you ever seen that movie. It's about a group of guys. It's him and Steve Buscemi and Adam Sandler, and they're part of a punk rock band.
Did not
And
see that.
dude, it's so good. I can't remember. I think it came out in the 90s or
I've
late 80s.
also not seen Bedazzled. I haven't seen that.
Yeah, but Dazzle, I like that one. It's very much of its time. Another one that I enjoy that I feel it doesn't get a lot of love, I haven't seen it in years, is Inkheart. It was based on like a novel. I thoroughly enjoyed that one too. Brendan Fraser has some movies that I think they just bombed and they just didn't do great for his career, and then you just kind of forget about him. I like the one that the Journey to the Center of the Earth that he did.
I like that one. I know it's like super like in your face, like 3D. That would, if you actually watched it in 3D, you'd probably get a headache because it's always shooting stuff out on purpose. But I always kind of enjoyed that, as well as the one with the Rock that came out after that.
Yeah, the sequel where they like replaced him, right?
Mm-hmm.
I never saw that one actually. I've only seen the first one.
I like them both pretty much equally. So, yeah.
Now check that out. I see here that Sean says that he just finished Fat Man. That's a new Mel Gibson movie. I haven't seen it yet, but I want to check it out for sure.
I'm planning to see that one.
Yeah, I'll definitely see that one soon. Henry here saying that he asked if I've ever thought about reviewing Misery. I've never heard of Misery. Have you heard of Misery?
I don't know what Misery is.
Yeah, neither do I. Worst reviews. Airheads is great. Yeah, man. Airheads is just one of those movies for me that's just it's like it's very much a movie of its time. And I've talked about it before. I used to be in a band, and I've just always been a big fan of like punk rock and like music and like that kind of like just a bunch of just like grungy, just punk like Airheads, essentially, just a bunch of like just people just chilling. So, like growing up as a kid, I always thought it was so cool. Like, I mean, there's an element of it that's stupid, but like, I always thought it was so cool. Like, I'm gonna, just be a guy with a leather jacket sitting in the corner with long hair and a cigarette, and that's kind of like the vibe the movie gives off. But it's about these three guys that are kind of delusional, and they're in this rock band, and they want people to hear their music, and they end up going to a radio station. They sneak into a radio station, and they end up taking the radio station hostage with fake guns, just so that they would play their music on the air. And it stars Brendan Fraser, Steve Buscemi, and Adam Sandler. And it's one of those films that I feel like most people don't talk about, but I feel like if you're a fan of those three actors, it's a really, really good time. I do highly recommend that one. I see here that 123 Rock fan says that it's a Stephen King film. He's referring to Misery. Oh, with Kathy Bates. I know exactly which one you're talking about. I haven't seen the movie.
I still don't know what it is.
It just pops into my head. I remember seeing Chris Stuckman talk about it, and I have seen like images and some scenes of it. Yeah, maybe I'll throw that on the list for one of the countless movies to watch. Like we were talking about earlier, there's just so much to keep up with these days. It's kind of damn near impossible. But all right, man, I'm looking at the time. I think I'm going to wrap this up now. I've got to do a couple of things, but let me give a big thank you to David for being here in this video. This is the first of many of the random ramblings that I will have him on. We have done countless reviews on this channel together. Like I said earlier in the review, we'll be doing Ex Machina together very, very soon. Definitely looking forward to having that review up with David very soon. And then I was just recently on his channel for George of the Jungle. We have tons of stuff coming out on both of our channels, so definitely go give him some love. Like he said, his last of his daily reviews will be out tomorrow, so definitely go check that out. Give him some love. The link is down below in the description box. Go give him some love, genuinely. He's got tons of stuff going on over there. Go watch his karaoke videos. And yeah, man, any last thoughts you want to give me, man?
No, just thank you for having me on tonight. It was fun. That's all
man.
I got to say. Also, everybody subscribe to Anthony.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it so much. I appreciate all of you guys who watched and commented and were here. Thank you guys so much for being a part of the stream. We're going to wrap this up now, but thank you. Give David some love, whether you're watching it now or watching it later. I appreciate it, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.